April 29th, 1945. Camp Hearn, Texas. The morning sun had not yet burned through the mist when Sergeant Robert Morrison gave an order that would make a young German woman cry into her coffee. "Prisoners eat first," he said in that flat Texas drawl. "American personnel will wait." 21-year-old Catherine Bergman stood frozen in line, tin cup shaking in her hands. She had crossed an ocean expecting cruelty. She had lost her parents to American bombs. She wore the gray uniform of the enemy. And now these same Americans, these men she had been taught to hate, were stepping back from their own breakfast so she could eat first. What she did not know was that the sergeant giving that order had lost his own brother to German hands just 3 months earlier. And what both of them did not know was that this single breakfast would connect their families across 70 years, right up to a wedding in Texas in 1978 that nobody could have predicted. But let's go back. Because the story of how Catherine Bergman, Kate to her father, went from a bright-eyed teenager in Hamburg to a prisoner eating bacon in Texas is a journey through fire ash and lies that would take her years to understand. Hamburg, Germany, July 1943. Kate was 19 years old and good at mathematics. Her father, Heinrich, worked as a radio engineer. Her mother, Greta, taught school. They were a close family. Happy, or as happy as anyone could be, in the third year of a war that was starting to taste like defeat in the back of everyone's throat. Heinrich had taught Kate about radio signals at their kitchen table. Morse code, frequencies. The invisible language that traveled through air and connected continents. She loved the precision of it. The way dots and dashes, the way dots and lines could become words, could become meaning, could reach across empty space and touch someone far away. Greta believed in truth. She taught her students to question, to think, to read carefully. The Nazi authorities did not like this, but Greta was careful. She taught arithmetic and grammar and kept her dangerous ideas hidden in the spaces between words. They lived in a neighborhood of all narrow houses with red tile roofs. The streets smelled of coal smoke and salt water from the harbor. Kate could walk to the university. Her father could bicycle to his workshop. Her mother could take the tram to her school. It was ordinary. It was precious. It would not last. July 25th, 1943. Operation Gomorrah. That was what the Allies called it. The firebombing of Hamburg. 8 days and 7 nights of hell dropping from the sky in steel containers. Incendiary bombs that turned air into fire and fire into wind, and wind into a hurricane that sucked oxygen from lungs and people from streets and threw them into the flames like kindling. Kate survived because she was in the basement shelter when the first bombs fell. She stayed there for 3 days listening to the city burn above her. The sound was not what she expected. It was not explosions. It was a roar. Constant. Hungry. The roar of fire eating a city alive. When the bombing finally stopped and she climbed the stairs and pushed open the shelter door, she came up into a different world. The street was gone. Not damaged. Gone. The houses were black skeletons. The pavement was melted glass. The air tasted like burned meat and chemicals and something sweet and horrible that she would later learn was the smell of 40,000 people turned to ash. She found her father's body in what had been their garden. He had been trying to save the neighbors, the elderly couple next door. All 3 of them were there, frozen in positions that suggested they had been running when the firestorm caught them. Her father's pocket watch was still in his vest pocket. The crystal was cracked. The hands had stopped at 11:47. The leather strap was stained dark with his blood. Her mother had made it to the hospital. Burns covering 60% of her body. She lived for 2 days, long enough to see Kate one last time, long enough to whisper, "They lied to us about everything. I'm sorry we believed them." Then she died. Kate stood in the ashes of her family's home holding her father's watch. The blood on the strap had dried to brown. She could not cry. The grief was too big for tears. It sat in her chest like a stone, heavy, cold, dead weight pressing on her lungs. Then the stone cracked, and what poured out was not sadness. It was rage. They took everything. The Americans, the British, the bombers with their loads of fire. They took her parents, her home, her future, her faith in a world that made sense. And for what? What had her father done except fix radios and teach his daughter about frequencies? What had her mother done except teach children to read? Kate joined the Luftwaffe Auxiliary in September 1943. 8 weeks after Hamburg burned, she did not join because she believed in Hitler. She had stopped believing in anything except the cold arithmetic of revenge. American bombers had taken everything from her. She would help shoot them down. Every single one. The training was in Bavaria, far from the ruined coast. Clean barracks, adequate food, strict discipline. She learned to operate radio equipment to track aircraft by sound and signal to coordinate anti-aircraft batteries, to stay calm when the air shook with flak and the night lit up with searchlights and tracers. She was good at it. The technical precision her father had taught her made her excellent at her job. She could identify aircraft by engine sound alone. She could calculate trajectories in her head. She could stay focused when other girls panicked. Every bomber she helped track, everyone the guns hit, she told herself the same thing. That's for you, Papa. That's for you, Mama. She kept the bloody watch in her pocket always. A reminder, a talisman, a promise. By March 1945, Kate was 21 and stationed in a communications bunker near Bremen. The war was clearly lost. Everyone knew it, even if no one said it out loud. The Allies were across the Rhine. The Soviets were coming from the east. The cities were rubble. The people were starving. The officers were increasingly erratic, their orders desperate and contradictory. Kate did not care about the war anymore. She cared about her work, about the clean precision of signals and frequencies, about the small, cold satisfaction every time a bomber fell. It was not enough. Revenge never filled the hole, but it was all she had. March 28, 1945, American tanks surrounded the bunker. The officers fled, just left, got in their vehicles and drove away without a word, abandoning 30 women who had served faithfully for years. The senior signals operator, a woman named Margaret, made the decision. We surrender. Kate felt fury rise in her throat like bile. We are just giving up after everything. Margaret's face was tired. After everything, yes. The war is over. We lost. Surrendering means we might live. They raised a white flag, a bedsheet tied to a radio antenna. American soldiers entered an hour later. Young men with muddy boots and tired eyes and rifles, held professionally but not threateningly. Kate braced for violence, for abuse, for the revenge she herself would have taken. Instead, the American lieutenant said in accented but clear German, "Anyone injured? Anyone need medical attention?" They stared at him. He repeated the question. One of the women, a girl barely 18, was crying. The lieutenant gestured to a medic who approached carefully and offered her water from his canteen. The girl drank like she had not seen clean water in weeks, which was almost true. "Sit tight," the lieutenant said. "We will get you processed and moved to a collection point. Follow instructions and nobody gets hurt. Understand?" They understood. Kate understood that she had expected monsters and found men. Tired men, professional men, men who treated them like enemy personnel, not like prey. It confused her. Confusion was dangerous. It meant the clean lines of hate might start to blur, and she needed those lines. They were all she had left. The processing took 3 days. Medical checks, delousing, paperwork, assignment to a transport convoy. Kate kept her head down and her mouth shut. She watched the Americans, young most of them, Midwestern accents, Southern drawls. They smoked cigarettes and complained about the food and wrote letters home. They looked like anyone. Like her father's apprentices at the workshop. Like boys she might have known at university in a different life. It made her angry. She wanted them to be evil, to confirm everything she had been told, to justify what she had helped do, tracking their planes, guiding the guns. If they were evil, then she was righteous. If they were just young men far from home, then what was she? She pushed the thought away and touched the watch in her pocket. Blood and broken glass. That was what mattered, not their accents or their cigarettes or the way they looked almost human in the evening light. April 1945. They loaded the women onto a Liberty ship in Bremen. 200 women in the cargo hold of a vessel designed to carry tanks. It was crowded. It smelled of sweat and diesel and the salt tang of the Atlantic. But there was food, basic rations, thin soup, black bread, enough to keep them alive, which was more than many German civilians had. Kate met the women who would become part of her story on that crossing. Anna Weber, 32, a nurse who had survived the Eastern Front and did not talk about it. Pragmatic, hard, funny in a dark way that made the younger women uncomfortable. Save your energy, Anna told Kate on the first night when Kate was pacing the hold like a caged animal. Focus on survival, not pride. Pride will get you killed in a prison camp. Sophie Keller, 19, like Kate had been when Hamburg burned. Pregnant, 7 months along. The baby's father was a signals officer missing in action somewhere in Poland. Sophie was terrified. She cried quietly at night and vomited every morning, the pregnancy sickness made worse by the rolling of the ship. Kate found herself helping Sophie without meaning to, holding her hair when she vomited, bringing her water, making sure she got her rations even when she could not keep food down. She told herself it was practical. A pregnant woman needed care. It had nothing to do with seeing her own younger self in Sophie's frightened eyes. Margaret Schmidt, 45, the former medical officer who had made the decision to surrender. Maternal, steady, she led prayer groups in the evening, soft German hymns that made some women cry and others angry. Kate refused to join. She had stopped praying when her mother died. God, if he existed, had not stopped the bombs. Prayer was just another lie people told themselves to feel better. The Atlantic crossing took 14 days. 14 days of rolling seas and thin soup and whispered fears about what waited in America. The propaganda had told them stories. America was a land of gangsters and savages. The people were half-civilized. The soldiers were brutal. Prison camps meant starvation, disease abuse, death. But the reality kept contradicting the stories. The American guards on the ship were professional. They did not harass the women. There were medical checks twice a day. When Sophie's bleeding started one night, an American medic came immediately. He worked for 2 hours to stabilize her, his hands careful and his face focused. And when he left, he said to Kate in broken German, "She will be okay. Baby too. Keep her calm." Kate watched him go and felt the confusion deepen. Why save an enemy's baby? It made no tactical sense. It served no purpose. Unless the purpose was simply that a baby deserved to live regardless of what uniform its mother wore. But if that was true, then everything else she believed might be false too, and she could not afford that. Belief, even wrong belief, was armor. Without it, she would have to face the naked truth of what she had done and been and lost. They saw land on the morning of April 24th, 1945. The coast of Virginia green and untouched by war. Kate stood on deck and looked at a country that had not been bombed, had not starved, had not sacrificed its children to the fire. The buildings stood whole. The fields were planted. The people distant on the docks looked well-fed and clean. The contrast was stunning. Germany was rubble and ash and the smell of death. America was intact, abundant, alive. The disconnect between propaganda and reality was so vast that Kate's mind struggled to process it. They had been told America was weak, exhausted by war, barely surviving. This did not look like survival. This looked like a country that could fight for 10 more years without breaking a sweat. From Virginia, they traveled by train, wooden cars, hard benches, armed guards at each door, but the guards were more bored than hostile. Through the train windows, Kate watched America pass, towns untouched by bombs, factories running at full capacity, cars on the roads, gasoline abundant, people in clean clothes, walking freely, shopping, laughing, living ordinary lives while Europe burned. The fury returned. How dare they? How dare they live normally while her parents were ash? How dare they have food and fuel in intact buildings while German children starved in the rubble? How dare they look so comfortable, so safe, so untouched by the horror they had helped create? But beneath the fury was something else. Envy, grief, a terrible creeping understanding that maybe, just maybe, Germany had picked a fight it could never win. Not because of courage or conviction, but because of simple mathematics. You could not defeat a country with this much steel, this much food, this much untouched capacity to wage war. The Third Reich had promised victory. It had delivered suicide. April 26th. They arrived at Camp Hearn, Texas. The train stopped at a small platform. Guards directed them to trucks. The landscape was alien, flat, hot even in April. Mesquite trees with thorns and twisted branches. Red dirt, sky so big and blue it hurt to look at. The camp was organized, clean. Barbed wire surrounded compounds, but the wire was maintained, not rusting. Wooden barracks stood in neat rows. There was electricity, running water, latrines that actually flushed, medical facilities, administration buildings, an American flag snapping in the hot wind. Kate had expected a hellhole. This looked more orderly than some German military bases she had seen. The disconnect continued. Processing took hours. Medical examination thorough but respectful. The doctor, an older man with gentle hands, checked Sophie carefully and spoke to her in slow English that the interpreter translated. Baby is strong. You will need rest and good food. We will make sure you get both. Sophie cried with relief. Kate watched and said nothing. Delousing was humiliating but quick. They were issued clothing, 2 sets, gray but clean, blankets, rough wool that scratched skin but was warm, tin cups, tin bowls, basic toiletries. Kate was assigned number POW2847. The number was stamped on a small metal tag she had to wear. She hated it. She was not a number. She was Catherine Bergman, daughter of Heinrich and greatest survivor of Hamburg Signals operator, a person with a name and a history and a grief too large for numbers. But to the Americans, she was 2847, just another enemy prisoner in a system processing thousands. The women's compound held 200 prisoners separated from the main camp, where over 5,000 men were held. A double fence divided them. They could see the men during roll calls, hear voices across the wire, but could not interact. The separation was for everyone's safety, the interpreter explained. Fewer complications this way. The barracks were plain, bunk beds, 40 women per building. The smell was wood and dust and something unfamiliar, a sweet, slightly smoky scent that Kate would later learn was mesquite. The sounds were new too. Cicadas. Louder than any insect she had ever heard, a constant electric buzz that rose and fell with the heat. Crickets at night, the calls of birds she did not recognize. And underneath it all, the low murmur of 200 women trying to understand what would happen to them next. That first night, Kate lay on her bunk and listened to Sophie crying quietly 2 beds over. Anna was already asleep, snoring softly, the sleep of someone who had learned to rest when rest was available. Margaret was leading a whispered prayer group at the far end of the barracks. Kate pulled out her father's watch and opened it. Inside the case was a tiny photograph, her parents on their wedding day, young and smiling, and full of hope for a future that would end in fire. She closed the watch and held it tight. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tomorrow, the Americans would show their true intentions. Tomorrow, the revenge she expected would finally arrive. She did not know that tomorrow would instead bring confusion, kindness, the beginning of a crack in the armor she had built around her heart. She did not know that in 3 days, a sergeant from Texas would give an order that would change everything. She did not know that the real war, the one inside her own soul, was just beginning. Act 2, the first day. Morning came at 5:30, announced by a whistle that cut through the Texas heat like a blade. Kate jerked awake, heart pounding, trained by 2 years of military routine to respond instantly to the sound. Around her, women stumbled from bunks, pulling on clothes, trying to orient themselves in the unfamiliar space. Roll call was in the yard. They stood in lines while an American sergeant read numbers from a clipboard. He spoke English. A helper, a German speaker working for the Americans, repeated the numbers. Women answered when they heard something close to their assigned number. The process was slow, inefficient, but thorough. Kate studied the sergeant. Tall, maybe 35. Weathered face, the kind you get from years outdoors and strong sun. Texas accent she would learn, though she did not know enough English yet to identify regional differences. His name tag said Morrison. He did not smile, did not show friendliness or hostility. Just did his job with the same professional detachment the other Americans had shown. She watched for cruelty, for the moment when the mask would slip and the real treatment would begin. It did not come. He counted them, checked his list, nodded to the guard to dismiss them to breakfast. Breakfast. The mess hall smelled of boiled grain and something trying to be coffee. The women formed a line. Kate shuffled forward with her tin bowl and cup. The food was basic. Thin oatmeal, a piece of dark bread. Liquid that was technically coffee, but tasted like burned grain and sadness. It was not much, but it was regular. That Kate was starting to realize might be the point. Not abundance, but consistency. The knowledge that tomorrow there would be another meal and the day after that another. For people who had lived through Germany's final year when rations kept shrinking and black bread was cut with sawdust, and you were lucky to get a potato, even thin oatmeal felt almost secure. After breakfast came work assignments. The Americans believed in keeping prisoners busy. Kate, because she spoke some English, learned from her father who had worked with international companies, was assigned to clerical work, administration building, filing, typing, processing prisoner records under supervision. The building was clean, organized, everything labeled and sorted. Very American, she would learn. The obsession with documentation, with proper procedure, with doing things by the book, even in the chaos of war. It was both admirable and slightly absurd, this faith that paperwork could impose order on the mess of human conflict. Sergeant Morrison was her supervisor. He showed her the filing system, explained in slow, clear English what needed to be done, demonstrated once, then left her to work. He was not unkind, but he was not warm either. Professional, distant, a wall between them that was proper and necessary and somehow disappointing. Kate told herself she did not want warmth from the enemy. She wanted them to be cold to confirm her expectations. But human nature is perverse. The indifference stung more than open hostility would have. Hostility she could return. Indifference just left her alone with her own thoughts. The work was simple but tedious. Prisoner records, names, numbers, dates of capture, medical notes, work assignments. Kate filed mechanically, her mind elsewhere. Each folder was a person. Each person had a story. Most were men soldiers captured in France or Italy, or the final collapse. Some were women like her auxiliaries swept up in the chaos. She wondered where they would all go when this ended. Germany was destroyed. Even if they survived prison camp, what was there to return to rubble starvation? A country carved up by the victors. Maybe they were better off here behind American wire, fed regularly, safe from the Red Army advancing from the east. The thought made her angry. Better off as prisoners than free in their own land. What had they become? Sophie's file crossed her desk that afternoon. She opened it without meaning to, driven by the same impulse that made her help the girl on the ship. The medical notes were thorough. Pregnancy approximately 7 months. Due late June. Some complications, bleeding, high blood pressure. Recommendation for weekly doctor visits and light duty only. Note at the bottom in careful handwriting. Patient is frightened and alone. Recommend compassionate care. Baby's father MIA, presumed KIA. Patient has no family in camp. Kate closed the file and filed it properly. Her throat was tight. She told herself it was just pregnancy hormones making Sophie emotional, making everyone around her emotional too. It had nothing to do with seeing a young woman alone and scared and carrying a child into a broken world. That evening, she brought Sophie extra bread from the mess slipped from her own ration. Sophie looked at her with wet eyes. You do not have to do this. The baby needs it, Kate said. Not you, the baby, maintaining the distance, the armor. Sophie took the bread. Thank you anyway. Anna noticed because Anna noticed everything. That night in the barracks, she sat on Kate's bunk. You are going soft. I am being practical. A pregnant woman needs food. Practical. Anna smiled, not kindly. Keep telling yourself that. But I have seen this before. You start caring. Then it gets harder to stay angry. Then you have to face what you have done and been. Be careful, Kate. The anger is ugly, but it is armor. Without it, you are just a girl who lost her parents and helped kill other people's parents. Can you live with that, girl? Kate did not answer. Anna patted her shoulder and left her alone with the question. The days developed a rhythm. Wake at 5:30, roll call, breakfast, work, lunch, more work, dinner, free time in the compound, lights out at 9:00. The heat was oppressive. Texas in April was hotter than German summer. The barracks had no air conditioning, just fans that pushed the hot air around without cooling it. Kate learned to move slowly, to seek shade, to drink water constantly. She learned other things too. The American guards were mostly young, farm boys, small-town kids, men who had survived combat and been assigned to guard duty because of wounds or fatigue or bureaucratic chance. They were not monsters. They were tired men doing a job they had not asked for, following regulations. They sometimes did not understand, trying to get through each day and maybe get home eventually. This made it harder. If they had been cruel, she could have kept hating cleanly. But they were just ordinary. Some were friendly, some were bored, some were professional. None seemed interested in revenge or abuse. They followed rules. That was the defining characteristic. Rules above all. Even when the rules said treat the enemy fairly, it confused her. It angered her. It slowly, insidiously began to change her. On the fourth day, a rumor started, whispered from bunk to bunk, woman to woman. Something was happening. Extra activity around the kitchen, trucks arriving with supplies, the smell of wood smoke, which was unusual, crates being unloaded, stamped with official markings. They are separating us, one woman said, sending some to work camps out west. It is a trick, another argued, making us hope before they crush us. Helga, a woman Kate had noticed for her constant bitterness, was certain. They are preparing something bad. Why else would they need so much? Helga Braun, 28, former nurse. She had lost 3 brothers on the Eastern Front. Her father had been executed by the SS for defeatism, for suggesting that maybe Germany should negotiate peace before everyone died. Helga refused to accept any American gesture as genuine. Every kindness was manipulation. Every smile was a lie. Kate was drawn to her. The anger was familiar, comfortable. They sat together at meals, 2 women wrapped in their grief like armor. You see how they watch us, Helga said on the evening of April 28th. Planning something. Tomorrow, I think. They will show their true faces tomorrow. Kate touched the watch in her pocket. Maybe. You sound uncertain. I do not know what to think anymore. Helga's face hardened. Think about your parents. Think about who killed them. That will keep you clear. But that was the problem. Kate thought about her parents constantly. And increasingly, she also thought about the American medic who had saved Sophie's baby, about the guards who looked like boys her father might have hired, about the clean, organized camp that did not match the stories of American brutality, about Corporal Davis, Corporal James Davis, 22, red hair and freckles and a Georgia accent thick as honey. He was friendly with everyone, trying to practice his terrible German, bringing Sophie crackers when her morning sickness was bad. Kate had been suspicious of him. Too nice, too cheerful, clearly hiding something. On the afternoon of April 28th, she found out what? She was filing records in the administration building. Morrison's office was adjacent, door open. Davis came in with photographs showing them to another guard. My sister sent these, Davis said. Found them in storage. Thought I would like to have them. Kate could see from her desk a family photograph, parents, 2 little girls in matching dresses. Smiling, the other guard looked. Where are they now? Davis's voice changed, went quiet. Atlantic, U-boat got the convoy in 43. All hands lost. Mom, Dad, both my sisters. I was already overseas. Only survivor. Kate's hands stopped moving. The file in front of her became meaningless marks on paper. Davis lost his entire family. To Germans, to U-boats hunting convoys, to the same war, the same enemy that Kate served. And yesterday she had watched him bring Sophie crackers because she could not keep food down. He had smiled at the frightened pregnant German girl and said in his broken German that it would be okay, the baby would be okay, just rest and eat and stay calm. How could someone who lost everything show kindness to the people who took it? What did he know that Kate did not? What strength did it take to give crackers to your family's killers? She sat very still, the question burning in her chest. If she had met the American bomber pilot who killed her parents, the specific man who released the specific bomb, could she have done what Davis did? Could she have offered him out the water, a kind word, basic human decency? No, she would have killed him with her bare hands if she could. The rage in her was still that hot, that immediate, that hungry for revenge. But Davis had chosen differently. Why was he weak, a fool? Or was he something she could not quite name? Something that looked like strength, but went in a direction she did not understand? The question followed her back to the barracks. Through dinner, through the evening. Anna saw her face. What happened? Kate told her about Davis, about the photograph, about the crackers and Sophie. Anna was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I knew a Soviet soldier once, after we were captured on the Eastern Front before we were transferred west. He had lost his whole village to German troops. SS burned it, killed everyone. But when I was sick, starving, this soldier shared his ration. I asked him why. He said, if I become like them, they win. If I stay human, I win. Maybe your corporal thinks the same. Kate lay on her bunk that night, unable to sleep. The cicadas were deafening outside. The heat pressed down like a weight. Tomorrow was April 29th. Tomorrow, something was going to happen. The women could feel it, the tension building like a storm. Tomorrow, the Americans would reveal their intentions. Tomorrow, Kate would find out if her armor could hold, or if it would finally catastrophically crack. She held her father's watch and whispered to the darkness, to the memory of her parents, to God if he was listening. I do not know what to do. I do not know how to let go. I do not know how to be anything except angry. Help me, please. Show me what to do. No answer came. Just the cicadas and the heat and the terrible uncertainty of tomorrow. But tomorrow would come regardless. Tomorrow always did. And when it came, nothing would ever be the same. April 29th, 1945. 24 hours before Kate would stand in that breakfast line, Sergeant Robert Morrison sat alone in the camp commander's office reading a letter he had already read 50 times. The paper was thin, the ink slightly smudged from being carried across half of Europe before it reached him. His brother Tom's handwriting shaky from cold, or fear, or both. Dated February 10th, 1945, 3 days before Tom died. Bobby on the letter began. Tom always called him Bobby even after they were both grown men. If you are reading this, something happened. I need you to know something important. After we bombed Dresden, our plane got hit. Engine fire. We crashed in the countryside about 20 miles from the city, bailed out, landed in a field. Germans found us within an hour. Morrison's hands tightened on the paper. He knew what came next. He had memorized every word. Some of them wanted to kill us right there. Can't blame them. Their city was burning. We could see the smoke from the field and smell it. One man had a pitchfork. Another had an axe. They were farmers, Bobby. Just regular people whose world was on fire because of what we just did. But then this old man stepped forward. Must have been 70. He said in German, and our radio man translated, he said they are boys, just boys. Like our boys. Like my grandson who is dead in Russia. If we kill them, we become what we are fighting. Morrison closed his eyes. This part always hurt. The old farmer hid us in his barn for 3 days. His family was starving Bobby. I mean really starving. Eating grass soup and boiled leather. But he fed us. Shared what little they had. Kept us hidden from the authorities. Then he helped us get to Allied lines. Risked his life. I never learned his name. I don't even know if he survived the war. But he chose mercy when he had every reason to choose revenge. The next part was what haunted Morrison's dreams. 2 days later, we got separated from the unit. Different Germans found us. These ones had no old farmer to stop them. They beat us with farming tools. Took hours. I won't describe it. If I don't make it and you are reading this, I need you to remember something. The old farmer and the men who killed me are the same nationality, the same people. But they made different choices. One chose to stay human. The others chose to become monsters. Bobby, when this war ends, you will have to choose too. Every day, in small ways and big ones. Choose mercy. Choose to stay human. That is what separates the good guys from the bad guys. Not the uniform, not the flag, the choice. Promise me. Tom had signed it simply. Your brother who loves you. Tom. The men who beat Tom to death finished the job on February 13th. The news reached Morrison in March. Their mother received the telegram 3 days later and died of a heart attack within the week. The doctors said it was cardiac arrest. Morrison knew better. It was grief. Pure grief stopping a heart that could not bear anymore. He had requested transfer to POW guard duty immediately. His commanding officer thought it was grief, a need for easier duty. Morrison let him think that. The truth was uglier. He wanted to be close to German prisoners. He wanted the opportunity to make them suffer, wanted to look them in the face every day and remember what they had taken from him. But he had brought Tom's letter with him. Read it every night. Let the words chip away at his rage. Choose mercy. Choose to stay human. That is what separates us. Tomorrow morning he would give an order that cost him nothing materially, but everything emotionally. He would order American soldiers to wait for breakfast while German prisoners ate first. He would do it because regulations said so, because the Geneva Convention demanded it, because it was the right thing to do. But mostly he would do it because his brother had asked him to choose mercy, and every morning he gave that order he was choosing, fighting his own private war against the hate that wanted to consume him. It never got easier. Every time he looked at these German women and treated them fairly, part of him screamed that Tom was dead and they were alive, and that was wrong, fundamentally wrong, but Tom's voice was louder. Choose mercy. Stay human. Morrison folded the letter carefully and placed it in his pocket right over his heart. Tomorrow morning, he would face his own test again. And he would pass it because the alternative was becoming the kind of man Tom would be ashamed to call brother. The cicadas sang outside. The Texas night was hot and thick. Somewhere in the women's compound, a German girl named Catherine held her father's bloody watch and wondered what tomorrow would bring. Neither of them knew that tomorrow would change everything. April 29th, 5:15 in the morning. The whistle cut through the darkness earlier than usual. Kate jerked awake, heart racing. Around her, women stirred, confused. "Why so early?" someone whispered. "This is it," Helga said from her bunk. "I told you. Today they show us." Kate pulled on her clothes with shaking hands. The pre-dawn air was almost cool, a brief respite before the Texas heat reasserted itself. She could smell something different on the air. Wood smoke richer and sweeter than the usual cooking fires. And underneath it, something savory that made her stomach clench with hunger and suspicion. "Line up outside," Morrison's voice carried across the compound. Sharper than usual, more urgent. The women stumbled into formation in the yard. The sky was purling toward dawn, not quite dark, but not yet light. In that gray, uncertain space, Kate could see unusual activity around the mess area. Extra guards, kitchen trucks with their sides open, steam rising in clouds, the smell intensifying. Coffee. Real coffee, not the burned grain substitute. She was sure of it. Bacon. The unmistakable scent of frying pork fat. Her mouth watered involuntarily. Bread baking, yeast and wheat in warmth. Kate's mind raced. This was too much for regular rations. Something was different. Something was wrong, or right. She could not tell which terrified her more. The women stood in perfect lines, silent, waiting. 200 prisoners holding their breath. The guards seemed more numerous than usual, but not threatening. Just present, watching. The kitchen crew worked with unusual intensity, the clang of metal on metal, the hiss of grease, the constant motion of preparation. Sophie stood beside Kate, one hand on her swollen belly. "What is happening?" "I do not know." Anna on Kate's other side was tense. Too much activity for normal. Either very good or very bad, no middle ground. Captain Wheeler appeared, the camp commander. Formal uniform despite the early hour. An interpreter beside him, a German-American, whose accent marked him as someone who had left Germany long before the war. Wheeler spoke in English, first his voice carrying across the yard with military precision. The interpreter translated slowly and clearly. "Attention. By order of Camp Command and in accordance with Geneva Convention protocols, medical personnel will conduct examination of sick and expectant prisoners." A pause. Murmurs rippled through the ranks. "Special provisions have arrived from main supply depot. This morning, all prisoners will receive full hot breakfast and supplemental rations per Army Regulation 254. Louder whispers now. Full breakfast. Supplemental rations. Kate's grip tightened on Sophie's hand. Sick prisoners and all female personnel will be served first. The whispers became confused voices. First before whom Wheeler waited for silence, then continued. The interpreter's voice shook slightly as he translated the next part. By direct order of the camp commander, no American military personnel will eat breakfast until all prisoners have been served and seated. Silence. Complete, absolute, crushing silence. Even the cicadas seemed to stop. The wind died. The world held its breath. Kate's mind could not process the words. They ate first, the prisoners, before the guards, before the Americans who won the war, who held all the power, who could do anything they wanted. Sophie gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Beside Kate, Anna's face showed the first real shock Kate had ever seen there. Further down the line, women began to cry before they could stop themselves. Margaret's lips moved in silent prayer, tears already streaming down her weathered face. Helga stood frozen, shaking her head slowly. "No, no. It could not be real. Kate felt something crack in her chest. A fissure in the armor she had worn for 2 years. The fury that kept her warm, the hate that kept her strong, the conviction that the enemy was evil and deserved suffering. All of it fracturing under the weight of 6 impossible words. American personnel will wait. They would wait. The victors would wait. The men with guns and power and every right to revenge would stand hungry and watch their prisoners eat first. Why, the question burned in her throat. Why would they do this? What did they gain? How did this serve them? Unless it was not about gain. Unless it was simply about what kind of men they chose to be when they had the power to be anything. Medics moved through the ranks, checking temperatures, looking for signs of illness. They were gentle, professional. When they reached Sophie, the medic spent extra time listening to her heartbeat, asking through the interpreter about pain, bleeding, movement of the baby. Sophie answered through tears, overwhelmed. "Baby is strong," the medic said, smiling. "You are doing good. Come, we get you seated first." Sophie looked at Kate, eyes wide with disbelief. Kate nodded, unable to speak. Sophie followed the medic toward the mess area, one hand still on her belly, protecting the life and marriage from a world that suddenly made no sense. Blankets appeared from wooden crates, thick wool scratching rough but warm. An American private distributed them, moving down the line with care, making sure each woman received one. The fabric still smelled of factory dust and oil. New, unused, given freely. More crates, tins of meat with English labels, powdered milk, white bread wrapped in paper, medical supplies, bars of soap, socks. Simple things, but to women who had lived through Germany's collapse, they were almost obscene in their abundance. The line began to move, slowly, orderly, women shuffling forward toward the serving area where steam rose like prayers into the morning air. Kate moved with them, her body on automatic, while her mind struggled with the enormity of what was happening. She reached the serving station. Behind the metal barrels stood Private Earl Johnson, 40-something, heavy, set with the kind face of someone who genuinely loved cooking. He smiled at her, ladle in hand. "Morning, miss. Hope you are hungry." Kate extended her tin bowl with shaking hands. Johnson ladled thick oatmeal butter, pooling on top in golden rivulets. Then he added 2 fried eggs yolks, bright orange and perfect, 4 strips of bacon, crispy and glistening with fat. A slice of white bread, soft and impossible after years of sawdust rations. Real coffee steamed into her cup, dark and strong, and smelling like before the war. Like Sunday mornings when her father would brew it carefully and her mother would set the table, and everything was normal and safe and whole. "Eat good, miss," Johnson said in his careful, broken German. Kate carried her plate to a bench, sat, and stared at the food. Around her, women were doing the same. Some crying, some eating frantically as if the food might vanish, some unable to eat at all, overwhelmed by the richnesses after months of near starvation. Kate picked up a strip of bacon, still warm. She bit down. The texture hit first. Crispy, actually crispy. The snap of it breaking between her teeth, something she had not experienced in over a year. Then the flavor flooded her mouth. Salt, smoke, fat, a hint of sweetness from the cure. The fat coated her tongue, her teeth, the inside of her cheeks. So rich her stomach cramped, shocked by the sudden abundance after months of thin gruel. But she could not stop. She ate the bacon like a drowning person, gulping air. Desperate, hungry for more than food. Hungry for the world this bacon represented. A world of abundance, of waste, of having so much you could give it away to your enemies. The egg yolk broke when her fork touched it, orange gold thick running across the tin plate. She soaked bread in it, bit down. Richness butter, the wheat of real bread. Her father used to make eggs on Sunday mornings, before the war, before the bombs, before everything turned to ash. She was crying before she realized it. Tears running into her coffee, onto her bacon salt, mixing with salt. Her shoulders shook. She tried to stop, but could not. The grief was too big, held back for too long, and this bacon, this stupid, perfect bacon, had broken the dam. Around her, other women cried too. Sophie sobbed while eating, hands protecting her plate as if it were treasure. Anna ate methodically, controlled, but her hands trembled and her eyes were wet. Even Helga, bitter, angry. Helga had tears running down her face as she chewed bread soaked in egg yolk. Kate looked up. Across the compound, American guards stood at their own mess area, waiting. Plates empty, no food. They watched the prisoners eat. Some shifted weight tired. A young corporal's stomach growled audibly in the morning quiet. Another guard rubbed his eyes exhausted. But none moved toward their own food. None complained. They just waited, following an order that cost them comfort but gained them something intangible. Something that looked like honor. Morrison stood apart, arms crossed, watching. His face was unreadable, but his jaw was tight muscles working as if he were chewing on something bitter. Kate watched him watch them. She saw no satisfaction there, no smugness. Just a man doing a hard thing because he had chosen to every day over and over, regardless of the cost. Why Private Johnson approached her table. He saw her crying and looked concerned. Too spicy. You okay, miss? Kate forced words out in her broken English. No, is good. Very good. My father, he cook also. Sunday morning. Before. She could not finish. Before Hamburg. Before the fire. Before everything ended. Johnson's face softened with understanding. Yeah, what he make? Schweinebraten. Kate searched for English words. Pork roast, with apple and cabbage. Sounds mighty fine. Johnson pulled up a crate, sat down across from her, uninvited, but somehow welcome. Listen, miss, war is gonna end. Already mostly over. Then folks gotta figure out how to be human again. Food helps. Sharing a meal, sitting down together, that is how you remember you are all just people trying to get by. Kate shook her head. But we are enemy. Right now, Johnson said gently, you are just a girl crying into her breakfast because it reminds her of her daddy. That ain't an enemy. That is just human. The words hit like a physical blow. Just human? Not German or American. Not prisoner or guard. Not winner or loser. Just human. Just a girl missing her father. Just a cook who believed food could bridge the gap between war and peace. Kate put her face in her hands and sobbed. Johnson sat quietly, giving her space, not trying to fix it or rush her. Just being present. When her crying finally slowed, he stood, patted her shoulder, once awkwardly kind, and went back to serving the other women. Anna moved to sit beside Kate, put an arm around her shoulders. Let it out. You have been holding too much for too long. I do not know how to do this, Kate whispered. I do not know how to stop hating. Neither do I, Anna said. But maybe we start by admitting they are making it very hard to hate them. Across the compound, the American guards finally got their breakfast. Smaller portions than the prisoners had received. Thinner coffee. They ate standing up, efficiently, professionally. No one complained about waiting. No one seemed to think it was anything unusual to feed your prisoners before yourself. Kate watched them and felt her entire worldview tilting on its axis. These were the monsters. These farm boys and factory workers who followed orders to show mercy. These men who chose to be uncomfortable so their enemies could eat first. If they were monsters, what did that make her? What did that make the cause she had served? The questions were too large. The armor was cracking. And underneath it, Kate did not know who she would find. That evening, Morrison called her to his office. Kate went with her heart pounding, certain she was in trouble. For crying, for making a scene, for something. Morrison sat at his desk, looking tired. A file lay open in front of him. Sit down, Bergman. She sat. Morrison studied the file. Catherine Bergman, 21, Hamburg. Parents deceased, Allied bombing, July 1943. Joined in Luftwaffe Auxiliary, September 1943. Signals operator. High marks. No disciplinary issues. He looked up. You joined 3 months after Hamburg burned. It was not a question, but Kate answered anyway. Yes. To get revenge. She stiffened. Yes. Morrison nodded slowly. I understand that. I understand it better than you know. He opened his desk drawer where he pulled out a worn letter, unfolded it carefully, the creases deep from repeated reading. He did not hand it to her. Just read sections aloud, his Texas drawl making the words somehow more raw. He told her about Tom, about the bomber, about the crash, about the old German farmer who chose mercy, about the other Germans who chose murder, about his mother dying of grief, about requesting POW duty because he wanted revenge. When I got here, Morrison said, I wanted every single one of you to suffer, wanted to make you hurt like I was hurting, wanted you to know what it felt like to lose everything. Kate sat frozen, afraid to breathe. But Tom's letter kept going through my head. Choose mercy. That is what separates the good guys. So every morning when I give that order, prisoners eat first. I am choosing to honor my brother by being the man he thought I was, choosing to stay human even when staying human hurts. He looked at Kate directly. You have a choice too, Bergman. You can hold on to that anger, let it eat you alive. Keep feeding it until there is nothing left of Catherine, just rage walking around in her skin, or you can choose different. I do not know how. Neither did I at first, still working on it most days. Morrison closed Tom's letter carefully. What kind of man was your father? Kate's throat closed. Good man, kind he helped people. Fix radios for neighbors who cannot pay. Teach me. Love my mother. Would he want you to stay angry forever? The question broke something in her. No, he would want me to live, to be happy, to find good things again. But he is dead. How can I be happy when he is ash? Morrison's face showed understanding that came from walking the same dark road. You honor the dead by living well, by being the kind of person they hoped you would be. Your father taught you kindness, taught you to help people. You are doing that with Sophie, whether you admit it or not. You helped that scared pregnant girl because your father taught you that is what good people do. That is him living on in you. But I helped it kill. I tracked planes. I helped guns find them. So did I. I dropped bombs on cities full of people just trying to survive. We both have blood on our hands, Bergman. Question is, what do we do now? Keep spilling more to balance the scales or stop. Choose different. Build instead of destroy. Kate sat in silence, the weight of it crushing her. Morrison stood, came around the desk, pulled up a chair to sit beside her rather than across from her. Equal height, equal level. War is over soon. Weeks, maybe days. You will go home eventually. To what I do not know. But you will have a choice about what kind of person you are when you get there. Angry woman who cannot let go, or Catherine Bergman who lost everything but decided to keep being kind anyway because that is what her father taught her. He paused, then added more gently, one choice at a time, one day at a time. That is all any of us can do. Kate looked at him, this enemy who had lost as much as she had, who fought the same war against hate every morning, who chose mercy at great personal cost simply because his brother asked him to. Your brother, she said quietly. He was good man. Yes, he was. I think he would be proud of what you choose. Morrison's eyes showed wetness. He blinked away quickly. Thank you for that. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we start again. Kate returned to the barracks in a daze. Anna took one look at her face and asked no questions, just guided her to her bunk. That night, Kate lay awake long after lights out, holding her father's watch. She opened the case, looked at the photograph of her parents on their wedding day. Young, happy, full of hope for a future they would never see. Papa, she whispered into the darkness, I do not know what to do. I have been so angry for so long. But they are not monsters. They are just men. Some good, some bad, most just trying to survive like everyone else. The sergeant who feeds us first lost his brother like I lost you. The corporal who brings Sophie crackers lost his whole family. They choose kindness anyway. How do I do that? How do I let go? No answer came. But in the silence, she remembered something her mother used to say. Hate is easy, Catherine. Love takes courage. Always choose courage. Outside, the cicadas sang their electric song. The Texas night pressed down hot and vast. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more difficult choices, more cracks in the armor that had kept her safe and hard and alone. But maybe that was good. Maybe the armor needed to crack so something new could grow. Something that looked like her father's kindness. Her mother's courage to teach truth even when truth was dangerous. Maybe she could choose a mercy too. One choice at a time, one day at a time. Starting tomorrow. Late May 1945. 3 weeks after the morning that changed everything. The war in Europe was officially over. Hitler was dead. The Reich had collapsed. But for the women in Camp Hearn, the war's end meant only uncertainty. When would they go home? What home remained to return to Sophie was 8 months pregnant, now her belly enormous, her face puffy from swelling. That worried Dr. Patterson, the camp physician. High blood pressure, protein in her urine. warning signs that made him check her 3 times a week instead of once. Kate had appointed herself Sophie's unofficial guardian. She walked with her to medical appointments, made sure she ate, helped her when bending over became impossible. She told herself it was practical. Someone had to help. But Anna's knowing look suggested Kate was fooling no one, least of all herself. 2 in the morning, May 23rd. Sophie's scream cut through the barracks like a blade. Kate bolted upright, heart hammering. Other women stirred, confused and frightened. Kate reached Sophie's bunk in seconds. Blood soaked through the thin mattress, pooling on the floor beneath. Sophie's face was white, her eyes wide with terror. The baby. Something is wrong. The baby. Anna appeared, took immediate charge with the calm of someone who had seen crisis before. Get the guard, now. Tell them medical emergency. Kate ran. The night guard, a young private named Collins, was at the gate. Emergency. Sophie Keller, bleeding badly. Baby coming early. Collins did not hesitate. Hit the alarm button. The siren wailed across camp, shocking the night into chaos. Within minutes, Dr. Patterson arrived running, still buttoning his shirt. Morrison right behind him, pistol on his hip, ready for whatever crisis the alarm signaled. Patterson knelt beside Sophie, examined her quickly, his face tightening. She is hemorrhaging, labor starting. Baby is early, but not dangerously so. Bigger problem is the bleeding. I need to get her to a hospital. Now. Morrison was already moving. My truck. I will drive. Against protocol to take prisoners off base without authorization. Then court-martial me later. Get her in the truck. They lifted Sophie carefully, Anna and Kate supporting her weight, while Dr. Patterson kept pressure on the bleeding. Sophie moaned a sound of pure animal fear. Kate gripped her hand. Stay with me. Listen to my voice. You are not dying. The baby is not dying. Stay with me. They carried her to Morrison's personal truck, the one he used for ranch business, not military. The bed had blankets already always prepared for emergencies. Patterson climbed in back with Sophie. Kate followed without asking permission. Morrison turned. Bergman, you cannot come. She needs someone. She is terrified, please. Patterson looked at Morrison. Let her come, Sergeant. Girl needs support. Morrison's jaw worked. Protocol said no. Humanity said yes. He made his choice. Get in. The truck roared to life. Morrison drove fast, but controlled, knowing every pothole could worsen the bleeding. The Texas night was vast, and dark stars scattered across black velvet like spilled diamonds. Kate had never seen stars like this. In Hamburg, before the war, city lights drowned them. Now, in the emptiness of rural Texas, the universe revealed itself in all its terrifying beauty. Sophie gripped Kate's hand with crushing strength. Blood soaked through the blankets. Dr. Patterson worked steadily, pressure elevation, talking to Sophie in calm tones that contradicted the worry in his eyes. Stay with us, Sophie. Deep breaths. Your baby is strong. You are strong. Just stay with us. Sophie's voice came out in German, raw and frightened. I am going to die here. My baby will die. We will both die in Texas, and no one will ever know we existed. Kate leaned close, forehead touching Sophie's. No, you are not dying. I will not let you. Your baby will be born American free with a whole life ahead. But first you have to fight. Stay conscious. Stay with me. She started talking anything to keep Sophie focused. Hamburg, before the war. Her father's workshop, the smell of solder and radio tubes. Her mother's classroom, chalk dust, and the sound of children reciting multiplication tables. Sunday dinners, Christmas markets, ice skating on the Ulster. The ordinary, beautiful life that existed before fire fell from the sky. Sophie's eyes stayed on Kate's face, using the words as an anchor against the pain and fear and bleeding. Morrison's voice carried from the cab. He was on the radio calling ahead. Kate's English was good enough now to understand. Emergency obstetric case. German POW, severe hemorrhaging. ETA 15 minutes. Have delivery room ready. A crackling response. We do not treat enemy prisoners here, Sergeant. Morrison's voice went cold as winter. You will tonight. Pregnant woman on American soil under my protection. Have your delivery room ready and your best obstetrician standing by, or I will personally see to it that you lose your medical license and this hospital loses its federal funding. Are we absolutely clear? Silence, then grudging. Yes, Sergeant. We will be ready. Kate heard this exchange. Heard Morrison, who had lost his brother to Germans, threaten an American hospital to save a German girl. Heard him use his authority, his power, his willingness to burn bridges for someone who was supposed to be his enemy. Why? The question burned, but she had no time to examine it. Sophie was fading her grip, loosening eyes, losing focus. Sophie, Sophie, look at me. Stay here. The hospital appeared a low brick building lit by harsh outdoor lights. Medical staff rushed out with a gurney. They transferred Sophie with practiced efficiency. A nurse tried to block Kate. Family only in the delivery room. Dr. Patterson, still bloody from the ride, stepped forward. She is family right now, the only family this girl has. Let her through or we will have a problem. The nurse looked to the doctor in charge, an older man who assessed the situation quickly. Let her in. We have bigger concerns and regulations. The delivery room was blindingly bright after the dark truck. Tile and steel and the sharp smell of disinfectant. Doctors and nurses moved with swift purpose. They did not ask about nationality, did not care about the war. This was their territory, their battlefield, and here the only enemy was death. They worked on Sophie for what felt like hours, stopping the bleeding, stabilizing her blood pressure, starting labor properly instead of the chaotic early contractions triggered by crisis. Kate stood beside the bed, holding Sophie's hand, whispering encouragement in German that the medical staff ignored. 3 hours of labor, Sophie screaming, crying, pushing. Kate had never witnessed birth before. It was terrifying and brutal, and somehow sacred. The rawness of it, the vulnerability, life forcing its way into the world through pain and blood and sheer stubborn will. Push, the doctor commanded. Sophie pushed, face-red veins standing out on her neck. Again, one more, one more. Sophie screamed a sound that came from somewhere primal and fierce. Then silence. Heart-stopping silence that stretched for an impossible second. Then a baby's cry, thin, reedy, but unmistakably alive. It is a boy, the doctor announced, smiling despite his exhaustion. Small but healthy lungs. Listen to him. Nurses cleaned the baby, wrapped him in blankets, placed him on Sophie's chest. Sophie sobbed, hands coming up to touch her son with trembling fingers. James, his name is James. Kate stood back, tears streaming down her face. She watched Sophie count tiny fingers stroke the baby's dark hair, whisper to him in German. You are American, born in Texas, free. You will never know what we ran from. You will never carry our shame. The baby quieted at his mother's voice, small face turning toward the familiar sound he had heard from inside the womb. Kate felt something crack open in her chest. Not the armor this time. Something deeper. A possibility she had not let herself imagine. That life could continue. That new beginnings were possible even after everything ended. That a baby born to a German POW in a Texas hospital could be simply and completely innocent, unburdened by the past. Morrison appeared in the doorway. He had been there all night, waiting, pacing probably. His eyes found the baby first, then Sophie, then Kate. His face showed relief and something else. Something that looked like peace. Everyone healthy, Dr. Patterson, washing his hands at the sink, nodded. Mother and baby both stable. It was close, another 20 minutes and we might have lost them both. Good driving, Sergeant. Morrison nodded, said nothing, but Kate saw his hand touch his chest right over his heart, where she now knew he kept Tom's letter. Choose mercy. He had chosen. Again. The drive back to camp was quiet. Dawn painted the Texas sky in shades of gold and pink. Sophie slept in the truck bed, exhausted, baby James wrapped in hospital blankets and tucked against her chest. Kate sat in the cab with Morrison, too tired to worry about protocol. They rode in silence for miles, then Morrison spoke. You did good tonight, Bergman. I did nothing, just held her hand. Sometimes that is everything. Another mile of silence. Then, can I ask you something? Yes. Why do you help her, Sophie? You could have stayed distant, protected yourself. Why let yourself care? Kate looked out at the dawn. Because my father would have helped her. He helped everyone. Fixed radios for people too poor to pay. Taught neighborhood children mathematics. When I help Sophie, I am being my father's daughter. Maybe that is the only way he lives on now. Through the choices I make. Morrison nodded slowly. My brother would have done the same. Helped her. No hesitation. He paused. I lost my wife's baby 3 years ago. She was 8 months pregnant when she hemorrhaged exactly like tonight. We got her to the hospital, but the baby did not make it. My wife almost died too. When I saw Sophie bleeding, all I could think was, somebody has to help her. Does not matter what uniform she wore. She is just a girl having a baby. Some things are bigger than war. Kate turned to look at him. This man who had lost so much. Brother, mother, unborn child, years of his life to a war he did not start. And still he chose mercy. Still he drove through the night to save an enemy's baby. Your brother was right, she said quietly, about choosing mercy, about staying human. It is the hardest thing. Yes, it is. But maybe the only thing that matters. Morrison's hand went to his chest again. Maybe so. They drove the rest of the way in companionable silence. Two people who had lost everything, who had every reason to hate, who chose something else. Something harder and better and more painful than hate. Back at camp, the women crowded around to see baby James. Even Helga softened slightly at the sight of the tiny wrinkled face. Margaret led prayers of thanksgiving. Anna organized donations of supplies, socks, and blankets contributed by guards who heard the story. Kate sat outside the barracks, too wired from the night to sleep. Corporal Davis found her there, brought her coffee. Heard you helped deliver a baby last night. The doctors delivered. I just held hands. Davis smiled. My mama said that is the most important, the hand-holding. Means nobody goes through the hard things alone. He paused. You are a good person, Miss Bergman. I know you do not think so. I know you are carrying a lot of anger and grief. But I see who you are when you forget to be angry. And that person is good. Kate looked at this young man who had lost his entire family and still brought crackers to pregnant prisoners. How do you do it? Stay kind after losing everyone. I ask myself what my mama would want. She raised me to help people, not hurt them. If I become cruel, then they really won. They took my family and my humanity. But if I stay kind, I keep the part of me my mama made. They cannot touch that unless I let them. He stood, patted her shoulder. Get some rest. Tomorrow is another day. Kate watched him walk away. Then she pulled out her father's watch, opened it, looked at her parents' young, hopeful faces. I am trying, Papa. It is hard, harder than staying angry, but I am trying. The weeks after James's birth passed in a blur of routine. The war officially ended. Celebrations in the guard quarters, quiet relief in the prisoner compound. With peace came new questions. When would they go home? What home remained? July 1945. The repatriation list began. Names called in batches. Medical cases first. Pregnant women and new mothers. The elderly. Then the rest organized by region and health status. Sophie's name appeared on the first list. She would leave within the week. Kate helped her pack the small bag of possessions. Baby James, 6 weeks old, now slept in a makeshift crib donated by the American staff. He was plump, healthy, his American birth certificate already processed. Born on U.S. soil, an American citizen by law. I will never forget you, Sophie said, holding Kate's hands. You saved us. That night in the truck, your voice kept me alive. The doctors saved you. No, you held my hand. You kept me here when I wanted to let go. You were family when I had none. Sophie pressed something into Kate's palm, a small cloth torn from James's baby blanket. Remember, we are not just enemies. We are mothers, daughters, sisters. Human. Kate's throat closed. She managed, take care of that American boy. I will. And Kate, forgive yourself. That is the hardest part. But you must. Kate's name appeared on a list 2 weeks later, processing for transport in August. She had maybe 10 days left in Texas. Morrison called her to his office one last time. He handed her documents, repatriation papers, letter of conduct noting her good behavior and cooperation. Train ticket to New York, then shipped to Bremen. Also this, he said, placing a sealed envelope on the desk. Do not open it now for the journey. What is it? Words from one person who lost family to another. Just words. Kate accepted the envelope, tucked it carefully away. Thank you, Sergeant, for everything. You earned it. You are a good person, Bergman. Whatever you did during the war, whoever you were, you have a chance now to be who you choose. Do not waste it. Corporal Davis found her before departure, gave her a photograph. His family, the parents and sisters lost at sea. I want you to have this. Remember that we all lost people. When you get home, maybe you can help build something better. So no more photos like this get made. Dr. Patterson gave her a letter of recommendation. If you need medical care or work, show this. You were a good helper during Sophie's delivery. That counts for something. The goodbyes with Anna and Margaret were brief. Women who had survived together who would probably never meet again. Anna's advice was practical. Margaret's was spiritual. Both mattered. Even Helga, bitter to the end, softened enough to say, maybe you were right about not staying angry. I do not know yet, but safe travels. August 1945. The truck to the train station carried 30 women. Kate looked back at Camp Hearn as they pulled away. Barbed wire, American flag, the barracks where she had cried into her bacon, the administration building where Morrison had shown her Tom's letter, the yard where she first heard prisoners eat first. Morrison stood on the steps watching them leave. Kate, on impulse, saluted. Crisp, military, not prisoner to guard, person to person, acknowledgement of what passed between them. Morrison saluted back, equally crisp, equally respectful. The train crossed America in reverse. Kate watched through windows as the abundance passed. Cities untouched by war, factories running, fields planted, a country that barely felt the conflict that had destroyed Europe. The contrast was almost obscene. She opened Morrison's envelope, somewhere in Kansas. The letter was handwritten, careful, clearly drafted, and redrafted before this final version. Dear Miss Bergman, by the time you read this, you will be on your way home. I want you to know that guarding you and the other women changed me. I came to this job full of hate, wanting revenge for my brother. You all taught me something I did not expect. That the enemy looks just like us when you actually see them as people. I do not know what you will find when you get back to Germany. I know it will not be easy, but I also know you are strong, you are smart, and you have a good heart. You proved that every time you helped Sophie, every time you kept working, even when you had every reason to give up. When I give the order prisoners eat first, I was not just following regulations. I was choosing what kind of man I wanted to be. Now you get to choose what kind of woman you will be in the world after war. Choose wisely. Choose kindness when you can. Choose to build instead of destroy. My brother Tom believed America stood for something better. After knowing you, I think maybe Germany can too someday. People like you will build that Germany. Safe travels. May you find peace. Sergeant Robert Morrison, U.S. Army. Kate cried quietly, folding the letter with care, placing it with her father's watch. Two men who believed in something better. Two men who challenged her to be better than her worst self. The ship from New York to Bremen was crowded with repatriating POWs and displaced persons. Everyone going home to uncertainty. Kate stood on deck as America receded, the country where she had been prisoner, but also where she learned forgiveness. Germany in August 1945 was worse than she imagined. Bremen was 90% destroyed. Rubble. The smell of death and decay. People like ghosts picking through ruins. Hunger everywhere. Disease. Desperation. Kate's guilt returned with crushing force. In Camp Hearn, she had eaten bacon. Here people starved. She had slept in a clean barrack. Here families lived in bombed basements. She had been safe. Here safety was a distant memory. She found her aunt, her mother's sister Clara, living in the ruins of Hanover. Emaciated, sick, barely surviving. Kate shared the last of her care package from camp, the canned goods and chocolate the Americans had given her. You look healthy, Clara said, not accusingly, just observing. The Americans fed you well. Yes, better than I deserved. Maybe better than you thought you deserved. Maybe exactly what you needed. Kate got work as a translator for the American occupation forces. The irony was not lost on her. Working for the enemy again. But Dr. Patterson's letter helped, and her English was good. She watched the Marshall Plan begin. American money rebuilding German cities. American engineers repairing infrastructure. American food feeding the starving. The same pattern. Abundance used for mercy, not vengeance. She remembered Morrison's words. Choose to build instead of destroy. America was choosing. Every day. Years passed. Kate married Heinrich, an engineer working on reconstruction. Quiet man also damaged by the war, also trying to heal. They found companionship, if not passion. Shared purpose, if not joy. Their daughter Anna was born in 1952. Kate held her and thought of Sophie, of baby James, of life, continuing despite everything. Kate taught English at the local school. Sometimes she told students about the camp. Carefully, honestly. I was the enemy. They had every reason to hate me. They chose differently. That choice changed my life. Changed me. Remember that. In every moment we choose who we are. 1975, Anna, now 23, was accepted to the University of Texas. Austin. Kate's emotions were complicated. Pride, fear, the strange circularity of life. Anna's first letter came in September. Mom, you will not believe this. I met an old rancher named Morrison at a university event. He said he used to guard German POWs during the war at a place called Camp Hearn. Mom, was that? And Kate's hands shook, holding the letter. 30 years. Could it be? She wrote back immediately. Ask him if he remembers Catherine Bergman, POW 2847. Anna's next letter made Kate cry. Mom, it is him. He remembers you. He remembers Sophie and baby James. He wants to know if you would like to visit. He says he has something for you. Something he has kept for 30 years. What is going on? Spring 1976, Kate flew to Texas for the first time since 1945. 31 years later, Anna met her at the Austin airport. The drive to Morrison's ranch outside San Antonio felt like traveling through memory. The Texas landscape had not changed. Still flat, still vast, still mesquite and red dirt and sky that went on forever. But Kate had changed. She was 51 now, gray in her hair, lines on her face. A lifetime lived since she was the angry girl crying into her bacon. Morrison's ranch was beautiful. White fences, grazing cattle, a house that looked like it had been added to over generations. Morrison sat on the porch waiting. 66 now, weathered, but the eyes were the same, kind, tired, knowing. Kate walked toward him, heart pounding. He stood, came down the steps. They faced each other, former guard and former prisoner, former enemies. Something else now, but she had no name for it. Miss Bergman, or is it Mrs. something now? Muller, but Kate is fine. Kate, welcome back to Texas. They sat on the porch. Sweet tea that was still too sweet made Kate smile. They talked for hours. Morrison shared his life. Discharged in 45. Came home to the ranch. Married in 46. Adopted children because his wife could not have them after complications from the miscarriage. Grandchildren now. A full life built on the ashes of war. Kate shared hers. Rebuilding Germany. Working for the Americans during occupation. Teaching. Her daughter. The slow, painful process of learning to live with what she had done and been. You all changed me, Morrison said. Made me believe people can choose better. That we are not locked into being our worst selves. That morning you ordered us to eat first, Kate said. You saved my life, not my body, my soul. You showed me power does not have to corrupt. That strength can be gentle. That mercy is harder than revenge, but more important. Morrison pulled an envelope from his pocket, old, worn from being carried for 3 decades. Been keeping this for you, figured if I ever saw you again, you should have it. Inside was Tom's original letter, the one Morrison had read to her in his office in 1945, the one about the German farmer, about choosing mercy. You are the proof Tom was right, Morrison said, about people being able to choose better, about mercy mattering. You are living proof. Kate cried reading the letter written by a man who died believing in human goodness, a man she never met but who changed her life through his brother's grief. Thank you for this, for everything, for showing me a better way. They talked until the stars came out, those same Texas stars, vast and indifferent and beautiful. 2 people who had walked through fire and chosen not to become the fire. 2 years later. Spring 1978, Anna and Lisa Morrison, Robert's granddaughter, invited Kate and Morrison to their wedding. The girls had met at university, fallen in love, decided to marry. The wedding was small, Morrison's ranch, folding chairs in the yard, wildflowers and barbecue and sweet tea. Former guard and former prisoner walked their granddaughters down the aisle together. Morrison gave a toast. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. In 1945, I was ordered to feed German prisoners before my own men could eat. I thought it was the strangest order I ever got, but I followed it because I believed in something bigger than revenge. That choice brought me here to this moment where my granddaughter marries the daughter of a woman I once guarded. War tried to make us enemies forever. We chose to be family instead. That is the real victory. That is what Tom died believing in. Kate spoke next. Her English was perfect now, no trace of accent after years of teaching it. My father died believing his enemies were monsters. I wore a uniform believing the same thing. Then I met monsters who fed me first, who saved a German baby's life, who chose mercy when they had every right to choose vengeance. Sergeant Morrison showed me that real strength is not crushing your enemy. It is choosing kindness when you hold all the power. Our families were supposed to be enemies forever. Instead, our granddaughters will raise children who will never know that hate. That is the peace we won. Not with bombs, with bacon and coffee and the choice to see each other as human. Sophie was there, flown in from Germany, 54 now. Baby James, 33, in an American Army uniform, married with 2 children of his own. An American family built from the seeds of that terrifying night. Sophie embraced Kate. You held my hand the night he was born. You saved us. Look at him now. American veteran. Father. Free. Because of you. Because of them. Because of mercy. 1995. Camp Hearn reunion. 50th anniversary of war's end. The old campsite was a historical marker now. Veterans gathered. American guards, German POWs. Old men and women remembering youth. Kate was 71. Morrison, 85, in a wheelchair, but sharp as ever. Anna and Lisa brought their adopted daughter Emma, 5 years old, bright-eyed and curious. A high school student doing a project interviewed Kate. Mrs. Mueller, what was it like being the enemy? Kate smiled. I was never the enemy. I was a girl who believed lies, made mistakes, and got a second chance from people who could have destroyed me but chose to show me a better way. What did they show you? That the real war is not against other people. It is against the hate inside yourself. And that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is feed your enemy breakfast. Morrison spoke to Emma, his great-granddaughter, in a voice that wavered but held conviction. Little one, your great-grandma Kate and I were supposed to be enemies, but we chose different. Every day, we chose kindness over cruelty, mercy over revenge, building over destroying. Remember that. In every moment you get to choose. Choose well. Kate placed her father's watch in the museum display at the campsite. Beside it, Morrison's letter, Tom's letter, Sophie's baby blanket, artifacts of a time when people chose light in the darkest moment. Emma asked, why give it away, Oma? Because it is not mine anymore. It belongs to everyone. A reminder that even in the worst times, people can choose mercy. Your great-great-grandfather died in Hamburg, but his watch survived to witness kindness. That is the real victory. The ceremony ended. The sun set over the Texas prairie, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. Children played on grass where barracks once stood. Former enemies, now friends, now family, shared barbecue and sweet tea and stories. Kate and Morrison sat together, old and tired and at peace, 2 people who had lost everything and found something better in the ruins. Not happiness exactly, but purpose, meaning. The knowledge that they had chosen well when choosing mattered most. We did good, Morrison said quietly. Yes, we did. Tom would be proud. My father, too. They watched Emma play with the other children. A new generation unburdened by the old hate, free to choose their own path because others had chosen mercy first. The stars came out, those same vast Texas stars. And somewhere in that infinite darkness, perhaps the spirits of those lost, Tweem and Heinrich and Greta, and all the others looked down and saw that their deaths had not been meaningless. That from the ashes of their lives, something green had grown. Something that looked like forgiveness, like family, like hope. Prisoners eat first. A simple order. A profound choice. A legacy that would echo through generations. In the end, mercy won. Not immediately, not easily, but definitively. One breakfast at a time, one choice at a time, One human heart opened to another, and that more than any battle was the victory that mattered. The end.